learn about what life was like during the 1930s. How was life like, say, 60 years ago? Have we changed our lifestyles? What about our foods, our clothing? How about schools? Are they different? Today, we would like to show you how different things have been during the past 60 years. Today's guests are my parents, Charlotte Jansen, who, when were you born, Charlotte?
In 1928.
1928, and also we have my father, Werner Jansen, and when were you born?
1922.
Okay, so we have about 61 years ago and 66 years ago. We'll start with Charlotte. Do you remember any of your early childhood, like maybe where your parents came from, anything that you remember before you even started school?
Well, from stories, my grandparents came over from Germany, but both my parents were born in this country, Minnesota, around in the Mankato area. And when I was first born, for about the first 2 years of my life, we lived in Mankato. And about the first thing I remember, when we moved out to the farm where I grew up on, I was about 2 years old, and I remember standing in this big, strange kitchen. And I don't really remember any details anymore after that, but I remember the move itself must have been traumatic on me, because I do remember when we first got there. And my father was a farmer, and my mother raised a large garden, and all of us children had to help. We had to shuck peas and can them, and she had a great big boiler that she used to heat her wash water for washing clothes. She used that to put her jars in to process the canning. She canned hundreds of cans of vegetables, and even meat. We butchered our own meat. We had hogs, and we had beef, cattle that we butchered, and she canned a lot of that meat.
So you would go to the store and buy?
Not our vegetables or meat. The only thing, we had chickens too. We raised the eggs, and the eggs would be taken to the grocery store, and they would be traded for things like flour and sugar and the things she needed for baking, that sort of thing. Otherwise, the food, like the meat and vegetables, we raised on the farm.
Okay.
The chickens laid eggs. You didn't raise eggs.
We raised chickens and made eggs.
I remember you had said one time you went around and you smashed all the eggs. Did you get into trouble with that?
Oh,
I was reading a story about that.
Yes, when we were old enough to stay home, by ourselves, my parents would go in to buy groceries on Saturday afternoon. And, of course, we kids would really have a great time then, because we would pretend we were gathering eggs, and we would hide them around in corners in the house. And, of course, by the time our mother got home and found these eggs, they had cracks, and we, of course, bumped them a little bit while we were playing. And she was a little bit upset about that, because that was her grocery money.
So she took the money that you got from the eggs, and that's what you bought groceries for. So if you didn't have any eggs,
well, then they would charge it.
they would charge it. So they did have charging back then, too.
Yeah, we always had an account at the grocery store. So if they had a lot of eggs, they could pay off their the bill. But if the eggs were scarce, then the bill got up a little bit.
Okay. What about you, Werner? Can you recall any events before you even started school? Can you think of any? This would be like in the early the mid-1920s.
Well, the first thing I can remember is before I went to school, I fell off the porch. I didn't go to the doctor much then. And I crawled around for a year, and I got over it. And a year later, I started walking. And
did you have a broken leg, or?
I don't know if it was broke or sprained or whatever. They just didn't have money to go to the doctor yet.
Do you remember that? Okay. Well, why don't we move on into, why did you, like your parents, didn't you move from place to place?
Well, they came over from Holland. They were both from Holland. And my dad, when he was working on a ship and he jumped ship, and he was actually an illegal alien for many years. And he was always worried about sending him back until they passed a law some years later that if they'd been here so many years, that they were automatically a citizen. And yes, they moved a lot of times in buildings that really weren't fit to live in. And during the Depression, there was times that they wondered where they was going to get enough to eat. And during the Depression, then they had this WPA, and that kind of held them through until things got better.
They weren't paid very much.
$1 a day, I think it was.
That's what he had to feed the family with. And then didn't your dad and you go sheep shearing too?
Oh yeah, we went. I had a bale of wool. They shared sheep for 15 cents a sheep. Painted whole sets of buildings on farms for $25. That was probably a week and a half work.
Now, you had said that you would go help other farmers and
Yes, that was, I would have been, that was in the summer then, I was 10 years old. After I was 11 years old, I really wasn't home much. I was farmed out. And the first year that I was farmed out,
Now, when you say farmed out, can you explain what you mean?
well, someday I had to go work for another farmer, and I got $25 a month, and of that $25, I kept $1. The rest went home. The second year I did that, I worked for a big beef producer at Marshall, Minnesota. I ground feed from practically 4 o'clock in the morning till 9 and 10 o'clock at night, and I was making $60 a month. Of that, I got $1 a week. After that, then things got better, and I kept my own money. And then I went husking corn by hand. I should say that there was school in between there, but I only went to school for 7 years, but I took 2 years in one because I would have been the only one in I think it was from the 5th to the 7th grade. When I graduated from the 8th grade, I was in the field in the morning, tied the horses on the fence, jumped the fence and took my test, and then went back out in the field again.
So you had to take a test in order to pass out of
Yes.
8th grade. So, okay, let's kind of move on into the school years. Now, why don't we just continue with you? What was school like? And can you remember some of the subjects you had, and what was your teacher like, and did they have strict rules?
Well, when I first went to school, the teachers was real strict. If you did something wrong, you had to come up on the front of the class, put your hands on the desk, and get whacked with a ruler. And if you did something wrong, and of course I went to this school for 1 year, and then for some reason they sent me off to a country school, which was 3 miles from home, and I walked to school every day. And there we had a real nice teacher, and well, our subjects were just reading, writing, and arithmetic. And in the winter time, we'd have to haul wood in and coal in, and summertime, for our recesses, we could go out snaring gophers, and if it was a nice day, the teacher would let us stay out a little longer
To trap gophers, huh?
to trap gophers because it was fun.
Well, my kids were like that. Okay. Do you remember, did they ever, the teachers, did they ever have to contact your parents for anything at all, or pretty much you just did what the teacher said?
Well, my parents were contacted once, or no, my parents contacted the teacher once because the language they talked at home was Holland Dutch, and when I got my report card, they had these things on there that it was inattentive, and my mother looked at it and she said, "What is this inattentive?"
Oh, so you were speaking a different language at home and having to speak English in school?
Right.
Wasn't that kind of hard?
No, you got used to it.
Oh. Okay. And what about your school? Now, you said you went to a city school for a little bit, didn't you?
At first we went to St. Peter and Paul's Catholic School in town because of the religion, and we had to make our first communion and be in Catholic school then. But after a few years it got expensive to get a bus or anything, and there weren't enough, that needed to get into town, so we went to a country school too. It was a one-room school, also 3 miles from home, which we had to walk. In the wintertime, we could cut it short because we could cross the river in the ice, and that would cut the distance in half. But there were all 8 grades in one classroom, and one teacher had all the 8 grades. So I was only there like in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So.
Did you bring home a lot of homework?
Well, we had time to do our assignments right in school because while the teacher was teaching the other grades, we were supposed to be doing our work. And so we pretty much got it done in school. I don't remember taking a lot of homework home. We took homework home, little, not a lot.
But you had time once you were teaching the other grades. Yeah. Do you remember any real naughty kids? What did they do with them? Does that
well, once in a while there'd be a few get rowdy, and we'd set them in the corner, and they had that's when they still had the guns capped.
Also, they put the hat on.
And, I really never got
you didn't have to
sit
sit in the corner, huh? Okay. What about, like, say, jobs as a child? I know you were talking about you would work on farms. What about you?
I did babysitting. I used to babysit for the neighbors. I got 15 cents for a whole night. And that could be, like, I'd start at 8 and would sometimes get home at midnight. Sometimes it'd be 2, 3 in the morning, depending on, how late it was.
15 cents?
I got 15 cents no matter how long I was there.
Okay. And I know you mentioned about collecting the eggs and stuff. Did you have to help milk cows?
Yes. I was the oldest in the family, so I got to go out and do chores, and my sister had to wash dishes. I preferred the cows.
You preferred the cows over that. Can you think of your favorite toy? Now, I know today's kids, they seem to have a lot of toys, and yet they find it very hard to imagine that you maybe only had 1 or 2, or maybe not even a toy. Can you think of a favorite toy that you had when you were growing up, either one of you?
I never had any. I never had a bicycle. Before school I had to work. I worked for a farmer, and this was starting, I should say, where really mountain was 11. And I had to milk 8 cows before school.
By hand.
By hand. Clean the barn, and still get cleaned up and walk all the way to school. And after school it was the same thing.
So you didn't have time. What about the weekends?
There was no such thing as weekend. You worked harder on weekends.
You worked harder on weekends. What about you? Did you ever have a favorite toy?
I didn't have it quite so tough.
Yeah.
I remember we did get, we got toys once a year, and that was at Christmas. We would always get a doll, or one that our mother sewed new clothes for. If it was good enough from the year before, then she should make new clothes for it. Of course, that always came from Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to play house, my sisters and I, a lot. Or we'd pretend we'd play school. I don't really remember other toys except the dolls. And I had a cupboard my dad made for me, for dishes and things like that we used to play house with.
Okay. And still, like especially a lot of the girls still do have dolls.
Yeah. But when we got a little older, we used to go on Sunday afternoons, especially, a whole group of kids, teenagers, and we'd get together and we'd go ice skating on the river because we lived near a river. So that was always fun.
Mm-hmm. Now think back, can you think of something that you were really afraid of? Is there anything? I remember we were told there was a bobcat when I was growing up, a bobcat in the hayloft, and whenever I had to go up to get the hay, I was always afraid because I think this is Ron, my older brother. I think he's the one that told us this. And that always frightened me to have to go up in the hayloft to get hay down.
Sure, pick hay.
What's
I
something?
wasn't afraid of it.
No.
What is something that really you were afraid of or that scared you?
I don't remember anything.
Nothing scary. Okay. Well, then we'll go on. You mentioned a little bit. Well, I can remember Laundry Day in our house. I grew up probably in the early 1960s. In fact, even no, actually, probably say that the mid 60s. But anyway, I remember Laundry Day being all the laundry clothes, all the clothes were in the kitchen on piles, and we had the what do you call it? The wringer washer was there. And it was a whole big day. It was a big production. It's not like today where you throw a load in every once in a while. And then I remember clothes hanging around the house, and the kids would go running underneath them and play hide and seek in them, or they'd be outside when it would be very cold, and you would bring in frozen clothes. Now, how was your laundry days when you were growing up?
That was about what my mother too had I remember it was a Maytag wash machine, wringer washer. And she would heat the water on the stove. We'd have to first of all carry it in from outside. We didn't have
we at least
water.
had water. We didn't have to heat it.
And bring it in from outside, heat it, and then at first it was a gasoline engine, and our dad would always have to come and get that started. And it would smell, and the whole kit, and it was set up in the kitchen in the wintertime. In the summertime, it was there was a building near the house that was they called it a shanty, and she would do her washing in there in the summertime. And then the clothes would be hung on the line. And when it was real cold, it was like I had to do when you were little, was hanging around the house.
Yeah,
we string up lines.
the dryers at all. Is it true that I remember you talking that it was kind of like in the neighborhood, even though you lived out on the farm, who could get their clothes out the earliest in the morning? Was there something to that? Like you were the big laundry queen. If you could be the first one out in the neighborhood to get the clothes out.
I don't remember.
Oh,
that.
I remember that. Someone told me that. What about you? Of course, if you were out working on the farm, do you remember your mom doing the laundry?
Yes, but they had an old wooden washing machine that I can remember. I had to even pump that by hand. Yes, you pumped it by hand. You had to take turns because you get tired pumping it. That's what made Werner go back and forth. Let the stick on.
I remember pumping by hand reminds me of another fun thing that we used to do as kids. We would go to church on Sunday morning, and then on our way home we'd stop and pick up a block of ice. And then we'd get home and we had an ice pick, we'd chip it all up, and then make homemade ice cream. Now we would take turns turning the ice cream freezer. That was always a Sunday treat.
Okay, that probably was like an entertainment for Sundays.
More or less, we enjoyed too.
Can you think of a meal? What type of meals? Like now today, a lot of people eat, say, frozen pizzas or tacos or what are they all like? McDonald's types of meals. What was a typical meal? Let's start with you. What was like a meal that your family would have?
Well,
what did you eat a lot of?
We canned all our beef. And then we had a big brine barrel where they put brine in and they put the meat in there because there was no such a thing as a refrigerator, and if you didn't have an ice box, you had it in the basement in a barrel. So you did have a lot of meat, chicken, potatoes, and always a big garden, a lot of vegetables.
Okay. What about sweets? Did you have sweets of any sort?
Not too much.
Okay.
We did. We had meat and potatoes always, twice a day, meat and potatoes. And for breakfast, we would either have like oatmeal or eggs. We didn't have the bought cold cereal that much. That was a treat for us too. Or our mother would bake We would have cake, pie, cookies. We always had those. In fact, it wasn't a meal if we didn't have some kind of dessert.
And you continue that? Can you think of any rules at all that you had to follow, or you would be in, big trouble when you were growing up? Or did you have any rules that your parents were real strict about? Actually, right now I can't think of any that we had. But it wasn't
Not really. I know when it came dating time, I was not allowed on a date until I was 16. Couldn't go out.
I didn't have to worry. I didn't have any dates until I was that old, at least. Anything else? I think we're going to wrap this up. Can you think of anything that we maybe haven't, touched on? What about some games you played? Did you play with other kids? Like, I know today we play kickball and softball and things like that.
We used to call it bat and ball, what you call either softball or baseball now. It was bat and ball. We'd have a bat and ball. Some of the neighborhood kids or something would play that. Or my cousins and us used to, like one afternoon a week, maybe we could go to their place or they could come to ours, which was like about 3 miles apart, 2 miles apart maybe. And we would play things like steel sticks and kick the tin can. I couldn't even remember how we played it anymore, but those are some of the names that we used. Okay. We used to play cards. Like our parents played cards a lot. The company came.
When did you say, did you have cars when you were growing up?
No. The first car, I suppose, was a Model T Ford, and I was probably 17, 18. And after I got older, then our entertainment, what we did a lot of horseback riding, Sundays.
Before this Model T came out, did you do a lot of just walking places or riding?
No, I ride mostly horseback.
Did you have wagons too, like when you went to church or something?
Oh yeah, we went to church with horses, sled in the wintertime, horseback to church. They had a regular hitching post like in Ghent, Minnesota, right by the church where you tied your horses.
I don't remember.
And with a sled, when you went, we took the sled to church, and they always heated a bunch of bricks in the stove first, and then you put them in the sled.
You wrapped them in a blanket or something.
You wrapped them into something, and that's where you kept your feet. And to go to, well, it was about 6 miles to town, and then you'd go every Sunday morning with a team of horses.
Did you ever have a radio or TV?
No. The radio finally did come, a battery radio. But when you figured you had it working, the next 5 minutes we quit. So battery again.
And what about you? Did you have cars or?
Yes, we had a car. My parents had a car. In fact, I have pictures of a car. I don't know what kind it would have been when my dad was court before they were married. So they always had a car. So yeah.
What about electricity? Did you have electricity running into your?
No, we didn't have electricity. We had carbide lights on one place, and otherwise it was lamps.
Okay, what about telephones?
There was no telephone.
We didn't have a telephone either until after I was gone from home. I remember we got electricity was when I was a teenager. And no, I was older than that. I had graduated from high school and was working already, because I remember then that Christmas we bought lamps and, electric things.
So how did you read, or how did you have light?
We had a kerosene lamp that we used to read. And for cooking was a wood stove. And I remember we got our first radio, too, was when I was a teenager about. There was no such thing as television.
Then they came along with gas lights. instead of using kerosene, you use gas, and that was much better, brighter light.
Now, our little house on the prairie, they always would go to this store and call. Could you go into town and call if you had to? I suppose you really had no reason to call anybody, huh?
No, but if you did want to call, that's what you would do.
Or some of the neighbors had
Some.
phones.
There wasn't too many where I was.
Just one last thing, it just dawned on me, like the kitchens. Today's kitchens, you see microwaves and garbage disposals and dishwashers. How were the kitchens, say, in the 1930s, 1940s? What were the kitchens like?
We had a pantry. We didn't have cupboards in the kitchen, but there was a little room off the kitchen where there were shelves, and that was where we kept, things that you would be keeping in the cupboards now. And then, of course, no refrigerator. We had, not until I was grown up, but when we were little, we used to keep our things, they called it a pit, or it'd be outside in the ground, a hole in the ground, and there was water down there, and then it'd be like a pail on a rope or
Which was called a cistern.
a cistern, yeah. And anyway, that's where we would keep like butter and things that we needed to keep cool a little bit.
Down
in a pit. You'd hang them down there and keep it cool.
And this was rainwater that ran off the roof, and that would be used for washing. And
So you get any water, you had to bring the water into the house if you...
no, they had a cistern pump.
Oh.
Some of them had a pump that went to the cistern, and you pumped the cistern pump.
Yeah, some of them did. We didn't.
And otherwise, they all had regular kitchen wood stoves, and to heat their water for washing, they had a big boiler that they used. And some of them stoves had a water reservoir jacket on.
Oh yeah, we always had hot water, because on the end of the stove was a big, like a rectangle thing, and we'd keep putting water in there, and with the stove going, that would keep our water hot. So we didn't, always had hot water that way.
It sounds to me that you spend a lot of time just, like getting the meal ready, much more time than what we would spend today, just because you wouldn't have all the conveniences that we do. Did you enjoy growing up at that time, or do you think it would be easier growing up, say, in the 70s and the 80s?
Well, we didn't know any better, so we didn't, that was the way it was, So
You accepted it?
Yeah. I think we had fun, because when we did have leisure time, we did things as a family. We prayed together, we played together, played cards, or we were allowed to visit our cousins. Or on Sundays, we would either visit somebody or somebody would come over.
And when you think of all the changes that have gone on since, you people were born, the electricity, the telephone, all sorts of appliances, that you just wonder, like when our children grow up, how many different changes there will be. Well, I think we're going to end today with our guests. I hope that not only my own kids in the classroom have learned something, but I also hope my own kids, Lindsay, Amanda, and Jessica, will better understand what our history of our country is like.